Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live, and we wanted to pay a special tribute to the late President Jimmy Carter and his precious wife there. They were married for 77 years, the longest marriage ever for any sitting president in the United States of America, as well as he was the oldest living president ever to as far as all the U.S. presidents ever. He lived to be 100 years old, and what an amazing man. I chose this particular article there to showcase to start with there because he was a true fighter for Palestinians and for their oppression that they suffered. But Jimmy Carter was not just about the oppression of the Palestinians. He was also about the poor here in the United States. He and his wife founded the home Habitat for Humanity, where they would build homes for those that were in desperate need. Just like I said, just an amazing man, and he left an amazing legacy there. ABC on Good Morning America, they had done this particular broadcast here about him when he passed away, and I want to play a portion of this here where this man right here, you're going to see him in just a second there, did the last interview with President Jimmy Carter and had this to say about him. Let's listen into this real quick.
He was early and wanted to get started right away. We sat down with the former president and the former First Lady and didn't talk about politics or world events. Instead, we talked about their love for each other and how it was powering them through this world and into the next. Throughout his life, President Jimmy Carter loved sharing that marrying his wife was his greatest and most wonderful decision. Their love story began in the farming community of Plains, Georgia. She was the girl next door. He came home from college and asked Rosalynn Smith out to the movies, and their worlds were never the same. They married in 1946, started a family a year later, and when Jimmy Carter entered public life, his wife Rosalynn was tirelessly working behind the scenes.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
After becoming the U.S. president in 1976, he would often say that his wife...
I'll share the link with you guys here. Let me get to that interview. Well, here he is right here building one of the homes for Habitats for Humanity homes there. Let me see if I can post that.
History. President Carter, you say often that marrying Mrs. Carter was the pinnacle of your life, more than any presidency.
Oh, yes. That was the most important.
He's 97 years old, and he and his wife, she had passed away before he did. Rosalynn did, but what an amazing couple they were, an inspiration. I know that a lot of people never cared much for his presidency, but he did bring back morality into the presidency, which was very short-lived after he departed the presidency there. But he was an amazing man, and I wanted to quote this here too from the article here on Mondois, Jimmy Carter's Palestine legacy, where they said here, Carter is remembered fondly by many on the left, and for good reason. In many areas, he tried to govern with humanity, decency, in regards to people's rights, whether due to his own shortcomings or limitations of the system. He was not always successful. As citizens of Cambodia and East Timor can attest, still he was far from perfect. Carter did still bring principles of human rights into his policy thinking more than any other U.S. president in living memory, and quite possibly in all of American history. I would say next to that of Abraham Lincoln. When I look at this, it reminds me too, because of the tragedies that the children are facing inside of the Gaza Strip right now. This is how they're gathering their water from the rain, because everything is so limited and so scarce in there. And I want to thank Charles for sending this to me right here. They're living in such abject poverty, it cannot even be even fathomably understood. I want to play also this clip here that just came out on Al Jazeera here just moments ago before I came on air. Listen in.
Hello again, this is Al Jazeera, a reminder of our top stories this hour. At least 7 Palestinians, including 6 babies, have died of hypothermia in the past week. That includes a 20-day-old newborn. Forcibly displaced Palestinians in Gaza barely have blankets and are living in worn-out tents as Israel continues to restrict humanitarian supplies. Heavy rains are making the situation worse. Tent camps are flooding across the Strip and preventable diseases are spreading. UN agencies estimate more than 1.6 million Palestinians are living in makeshift shelters that cannot withstand the cold. The US says it has conducted multiple airstrikes against what it calls Houthi targets in the Yemeni capital Sana'a and along the coast. There's been heavy exchange of fire between the Houthis and Israel in the past week.
And of course, the Yemenite people retaliated on Israel with some massive bombardments. I'll share with you here on, this is from Times of India. Let me see if I can get it. Times of India is not allowing it to back up or anything. Well, this is actually it right here. This was the Israelis were in panic there after the Israelis did shoot down one of the rockets that the Yemenite Houthi rebels fired into Israel. But that rocket was massive. It definitely was more like an intercontinental ballistic missile that was fired into Israel. It was shot down. This was shortly after the United States had bombed the Houthi rebels in Yemen, trying to take out that region there as well there. So, but anyway, they're vowing to continue their attacks, and it's really the last stronghold that they have for the Iranians in their attack against Israel, which I don't support any bloodshed whatsoever at all. I'm not for the bloodshed nor the violence, not against Israelis, not against Palestinians or any of the like matter there. But I can understand when you've been under occupation for 75 years, forced to live in a prison all this time, it makes the situation far worse here. And I'd like to, as I'm closing off in this, I want to share 2 scriptures. One that y'all are very familiar with as I share this, because I remember getting asked by a question by a sister. I was down in Orlando, a very precious sister, and she says to me, Brother Steve, she said, I want to ask you, you got to keep in mind that in the biblical days, and I may be quoting this not exactly right, just to the best of my memory, that Israel was always allowed to go in and to kill all the occupants of that land when they were taking their land back, or taking the land that God had given them. And that included women, children, etc. And so how would it be then today if they're working on trying to force out these foreign entities out of the land when it's supposed to be their land? And I said, the first words that came out of my mouth were, you negate the blood of Jesus Christ when you say that, or not when she says it, but when you do that. In other words, Israel does not have such rights as of today. Their temple was destroyed because they destroyed Jesus Christ, their Messiah that was sent to them, and he was the true temple. And of course, that was another reason why the temple had to be destroyed, because God, the Most High, dwells not in temples made by hand, but a body has been prepared for the people to live in. So we become living stones of the temple. We represent what the temple is. And any such structure that would be built in the Middle East today would be nothing more but an Antichrist system. And you would be backing a very Antichrist system in the first place. But I want to remind you what Moses said when they did come into the land. He said, and a stranger shall you not wrong, neither shall you oppress him. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So when they came into the land and they did occupy the land, this was the law that was given them in the book of Exodus, chapter 22. They weren't to oppress the stranger. And that was way back then. So Israel coming back into a land that she was sent out of because of her own sins, and still she's never repented. This is the bad part. This is something that most people never even consider. Israel has never repented for the sins that she committed in the first place, for the reason she was exiled or thrown out of the land to start with. She was driven out by the Romans. That was a judgment on the Jewish people because they crucified the Messiah. They hunted down the apostles. They hunted down those followers. They were murdering them one after another, and they have never repented for that. So in that case, they have no right to this land. They have no right to come there and live there. Now, granted, Israel is a nation. Many people have been born there. I don't rob them of that right, of them being Israelis and having a right to live there now. It is what it is. But when you're trying to say that Israel had a right to come back and take the land and an unrepented people, the only time God ever permitted them to go back is when they repented for their sins. They're still talking about praising the killing of Christ and have it in the Talmud and celebrate his death. He says, you shall not afflict any widow or a fatherless child. That's all they're doing in Gaza. If you afflict them in any wise, for if they cry all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. My wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. God says that to Israel. So, that was then, and of course it did happen. In 70 AD, it did exactly that. And that was after she'd already come back from the Babylonian exile. And still they were, wow, what a mess. And no wonder why the scripture says, he said, I don't do this for your sake, O Israel. I do it for my promised sake to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And one more I want to share with you, Psalm chapter 94. They gush out, they speak arrogancy. All the workers of iniquity bear themselves loftily. They crush your people, O Lord, and afflict thy heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger and murder the fatherless. They say, the Lord will not see, neither will the God of Jacob give heed. Consider, you brutish among the people. Notice that. Consider, you brutish among the people, and you fools. When will you understand? And you don't need any reminder of this, but I'll show it to you what Jesus said. Then said he unto them, O fools, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Now that was Jesus on the road to Emmaus when he spoke to the ones that were all upset because Christ had been killed. He said, ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? Beginning at Moses to the prophets, he expounded to them all the scriptures of things concerning himself. But in this case here, now that's not the case. These are not the same as what we have in Psalm 94. This is what you have today that have returned to the land. The brutish among the people. And they are fools that lead the nation of Israel. No wonder why. Judgment will fall. And it won't be very pretty. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. By the way, on our Patreon channel, we just uploaded another video. This is our third one here this week. What is really causing the tsunamis? They're saying it's high winds. I don't think that's really the case. But I do have proof to back up my answer on there. Hope you enjoy that. Hopefully we'll be interviewing Colonel Greg. By the way, you don't have to subscribe now to the channel there. If there's one video like this one here you want to see, you can actually just do a one-time purchase of a video. But I would subscribe. What the heck? You subscribe, you get access to everything. It's the easiest way to do. And it's actually the way most people have chosen to support the broadcast now. That's one reason why we're trying to do more for people on Patreon, because these are the people that support our work. If you do want to support the work, we certainly appreciate it independently by visiting IsraeliNewsLive.org. And all you have to do is just donate right there online. And you can click there to donate. You can also, if you want to get involved with LifeWave. By the way, that is something that would be an awesome New Year's resolution. It will change your life. We have been a year at this now, and we have seen more lives transformed from using LifeWave than you could ever imagine. People that had only been given months left to live that are here today. In fact, the last testimony we loaded up on our channel here, Ron Gunter spoke of that very thing there. His doctor never expected to see him again. We've seen cataracts come out, blood sugars reduced, people with blockages in their arteries clear up, and we've seen already 4 cases of thyroids totally go back to working normally, people that were on thyroid medication. Ron Gunter, his left side of his thyroid grew completely back. His had been removed from surgery, but they had left a little tiny piece on the left side. They did an ultrasound to prove that it actually came back. The product works. John Moore, those of you that know John Moore, the Liberty Man, he had a prostate issue that was causing him to wake up every 2 hours to go to the restroom at night. He said that no longer happens. So, you know, when you do it for the long haul, and now I know now, you really want to commit a year. That's the people that see the differences. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live.